The wrath of God in verse 18 is revealed against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Now the word ungodly means that it really carries the idea of a person that has no place for God, has no room for God. I don't need God. It's all right if you have God and have religion and have church, but I just don't need God. That is ungodly. And Paul says, guess what? People who disregard God, disregard God's law, have nothing to do with God, guess what? Their actions will end up becoming unrighteous. They're going to follow their ungodly actions into unrighteousness. And he says, and their actions are unrighteous. They will live not according to the principles of God, and as a result of that, they suppress the truth. Now, what does that mean? The best way I can illustrate it for you is like this. It's like the little boy who gets a puppy, and he plays with the puppy all day long, and he's excited to have the puppy, and at night, the first night, Mom and Dad say, okay, we're going to put the puppy in the kennel, and we're going to leave him downstairs in the kennel. We don't bring him into our room at night because he needs to learn to live in the kennel. He's going to sleep in the kennel. So they put the puppy in the kennel, and the little boy's so excited to have the puppy that he just wants to have him in the room. So he goes downstairs, and he opens the kennel, gets the puppy out, and he sneaks back to his room. And he's playing with the puppy in his room. Well, it creates noise. Mom and Dad realize what's going on. So he hears the light come on in the hallway and immediately knows he's in trouble. So he quickly takes the puppy and he puts it into his toy box and he shuts the lid and he sits down on the lid. And Mom and Dad walk into the room and they say, son, did you go get the puppy? No, I didn't go get the puppy. All the while, the puppy's scratching and scratching and scratching. All the while, the puppy's whining and barking underneath him. And the whole time, the puppy's there making this big ruckus. And everybody in the room knows the puppy is there. The little boy is saying, no, I don't know where the puppy is. No, I didn't do that. That's what suppressing the truth is. And Paul said, the ungodly man that leads to an unrighteous life suppresses the truth. Now, in the church at Rome, I think they asked this question, well, what about the people who don't know any better? What about the people that have never heard? I mean, is the wrath of God going to be exercised on people that have never heard? And Paul, he knew you were going to ask that question, so he answers it. And he says, I want to tell you something. God has revealed himself to us through creation in such a way that if you want to know God, you can. He's there. The problem is, even though God is demonstrated through creation that he is God, he is demonstrated through creation. I mean, just, you know what God says? You don't believe in God? Just look at the world around you. Look at the precise nature of the world that we live in today. The fact that there is order and not chaos. I mean, you think about this, the precise nature of creation and the order of our world. The earth is 25,000 miles in circumference. It hangs unsupported in space. It spins at 1,000 miles an hour with absolute precision. Travels around the sun 1,000 miles a minute in an orbit 580 million miles long. If it was closer to the sun, it'd burn up. If it was further away, it would freeze. The earth is tilted on its axis at just the right angle, so when it spins, it creates the seasons that allow us to have life. If it was slower or faster, we would be thrown out of orbit into the sun or away from the sun. And I could go on and on and on to describe to you the order that you and I are able to see around us by just looking, and that's just one galaxy. Do you realize there are millions of galaxies? We have a brand new telescope that is revealing things that we never knew possible. There are galaxies out there beyond this, and in every one of those galaxies there is order. And yet we have scientists today who would say, yes, there is order. Everything you just said is right. But there was this big bang that occurred somewhere in the past, and the world came into being. And all of those things that you just described and more happened by chance. And so many scientists are sitting on the toy box, and the puppy is barking and scratching, and all you got to do is look, and you know. It takes more faith not to believe in God than it takes to believe in God. And what you find, the ungodly who has no room for God, the unrighteous who lives according to that principle willfully ignores God. They exchange the glory of God for a substitute. They turn away in disobedience. They pervert the truth. They begin to reason in their hearts, secondly, all the things that support the reason why there's not a puppy in the box. And I'll give you all kind of arguments and reasons why that's the case. So we deserve the wrath of God, because we change the truth to follow our way instead of following the truth to change our ways. Our world is God-centered. He made it. He sustains it. And it reflects His glory. And when we make the world about a man-centered us, we can expect the wrath of God. Because He is holy and righteous, He takes sin seriously, and He never lets us off. So what can we do? Well, there's good news. If you understand the wrath of God, it's kind of like being in a field. Let's just surprise this. It's not hard to imagine with the dry conditions we've had, just being in the middle of a field with a grass fire burning all around you. You find yourself in the middle of a field and there is fire all around you. There's only one safe place to go. And that's to a place that's already been burned. And when we suffer the wrath of God and we find ourselves under the wrath of God, there's only one safe place to go. And that's where the wrath of God has already been exercised. And that's the cross. Because on the cross, God took your wrath and mine in Jesus. And He died in your place. So that in the cross, you could receive a righteousness you're incapable of producing, that He gives you as you come to Him. There's only two kinds of people in the room today. Those of you that have accepted Jesus as your Savior and those that have not.